Hello, and welcome to AwesomeAlgo, episode number 17. And today we have a rather interesting episode. We are not going to talk about engineering. Well, hopefully we'll try to avoid the topic. It's hard to not to talk about technology these days. But yeah, we're going to be focusing on designing strong and meaningful brands for blockchain ecosystems. And we have Ertekin Erdin today, who is going to talk about design for Tinyman and HipoLabs. And he is the sole genius behind everything that you see in regards to Tinyman branding and visual design. And I'm just very excited because I've been a huge fan of the animations that were produced for various videos for Tinyman, as well as just general style and a lot of symbolism behind the logos, behind the tooling that they provide, and it's just a very unique blend of technology and design that I haven't seen a lot if we are talking about the typical AMM platforms or things like that. It's a very fresh take on how these tools should supposed to look and function. So with that in mind, I think it's time to start with a typical introduction and background, as we usually do on this podcast. And I would love to hear Ertekin's journey into design. And firstly, I guess, starting by how did you initially join HipoLabs?
Yeah. Hello, Al. Firstly, I really thanks for giving that opportunity. It's really great to be here, and I'm a bit excited, by the way. Currently I'm working at Tinyman as the only designer, and my design journey actually starts very early. I'm 23 years old right now, but I was 7 when I engaged with computers. We had only one computer in our house, and before going to school, I was just watching my brother playing video games, and using the computer, whole new machine for me. And I was just watching him and their experience, and this is how I start to deal with computers. And after that, I started school and I learned writing and reading. And in Turkey, those days a bit early for technology and education, and our teacher was also really into education, and not all classroom had computers and projectors, but our teacher were teaching the class with projector slides presentations, and it was also really interesting for me. And one day when I go to school, our teacher made an announcement, and he showed a website to us. It was our classroom's website, and I got really excited because for a child, internet is something not solid. It's invisible, and behind screens you have the whole world, you have the whole archive, and it was really exciting because I was there. My photo was there, my friend's photo was there, and it felt really great to be involved in such a network as a child. And I said, I want this, because it's different than creating an account in a social media. It's different than involving in forums, communities. You have a building, you have an area, and you can do anything you want there. And after that, until high school, I tried to get involved in communities and learn about how to create my own website, own area. And this is how I start my design journey. And in high school, I also, until high school, I create my first personal blog, and I start writing about my life as a child. And in high school, I noticed internet got really big, and now
maybe just for reference, what time frame of years is this? Because this could tell a lot about the industry at those years.
In 2012, I think. I had my personal blog, and I was 12, and I was just writing some blog posts telling about my design journey, how I use tools and how I create stuff. And after that, I think internet got really bigger, and we see more complicated feeds, lots of different creations, lots of different products, different mediums, different platforms. And I saw a separation in community. Some people wants to be in the front of the scene, and they create stuff and they share their creations. And also some people were just working to create this environment for people to create. And I think it was a really great service because they are working for the backbone of the internet. And I said I should get involved to them, and I should learn about how to work on a project, how to work with people, how to work in teams. And in high school, I involved in some teams and projects and learned about the real design processes. And until high school, I was working lots of people and lots of projects. And back in those days, I was living in Izmir. Izmir is really a large city of Turkey, but everything, every new project, every teams, every event was in Istanbul. And I was getting ready to start into college, and I moved to Istanbul, and it was really it's really expand my horizons because all the community members and all the productions were done in the Istanbul. And then I met with Kaan in my senior year, and he offered me to work in HipoLabs. And HipoLabs also was also a software consultancy company in those days, and they were providing design and development services to clients. And I really liked their approach. I really liked the design team, and the team was really diverse. So I said, let's go. We can create some stuff together.
And you mentioned that you are the only designer at Tinyman. Does this imply only Tinyman, or there are more folks within HipoLabs as well? Or currently it's you sort of penetrated the company and made yourself more valuable than everyone else?
Not really, not really. Actually, as I said, Hippo is a software consultancy company, so we have lots of developers. But comparing to development teams, we have a very small design team. We have 5 people in the design team, and every person have some kind of different products. Para is also built in the Hippo company, but in Tinyman from day one, I was the only designer. But sometimes when we have huge updates, new products, sometimes I, of course, got help from them, and team always changed. But usually I'm the only one, but sometimes one of the design team members contribute also.
So let's move on in this case then. You, like, on your bio on one of your blogs, that by the way, really nice design on the blogs as well. Sort of reminds me the general aesthetics of Tinyman as well. But it mentions that you consider yourself as a multidisciplinary designer in the blockchain space. But what does this actually imply? And before you answer it, I'm also curious if you had any exposure to anything within blockchain, DeFi, or Web3 space before actually joining Hippo?
Yeah, when we first start to plan Tinyman, the decentralized exchange, I was also getting involved in the blockchain ecosystem. And that year I took a course about blockchain systems in my college. And it was also really exciting to me because there's something is coming, and you can't define what's coming. And but I was really a beginner, and I was trying and learning, consuming some tutorials and trying to getting involved. And I was really a beginner when I first involved Tinyman. But after that, after we start designing and planning and creating the product, I also browsed different chains, different protocols, and learned about their concept, their approach, and our main aim was creating the whole experience made for Algorand, because Algorand have different parameters comparing to other chains, and this thing we will create is actually will be specific to Algorand and Algorand soul. So being a multidisciplinary designer in this community is actually I'm not really a brand designer. I was not a brand designer when I first started Tinyman. I was just designing products, UI and UX design. But with Tinyman, I also dive into branding sites, creating a whole new branding strategy and all those visual crafts. So with Tinyman, I actually learned a lot about the branding side. I grew that.
I see. But like in terms of skills, if I may also ask, what was your very, very first programming language?
Very, very first programming language. Python, I can
Python.
say.
I see. I see. You look like a Python guy, to be honest. But yeah. So discovering, the Tinyman project and sort of the importance of branding in the blockchain ecosystem. What were at the time you joined? Were there already some sort of design or like visual system in place that the folks had in mind, or you pretty much joined at the very, very early stages and helped to create this from scratch? Like I'm wondering, where does the main sort of core of the design philosophy came in? Because in my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but why Tinyman? I think it's because of the original sort of vision or philosophy that Professor Sylvie Mikali had for Algorand, which is evening the playfield to very sophisticated economic tooling with very cheap, low entry fee for everyone in the world, basically. Hence Tinyman, that because everyone can basically access these tools. Was it sort of the reason behind this naming and branding there as well?
Yeah, you are correct, by the way. You are correct. Actually, in those days, Hippo was still a consultancy company, and I was working on a mobile application product, and we were in the last days of this product. And we had a great history of providing design and development services, and we thought, I think it's the time to build our own product, and we decided to build decentralized exchange for the Algorand because we didn't have. And in those days, actually, our first name was AlgoSwap, really generic one. And
well, I'm glad you changed it.
It was AlgoSwap, and in the first day, Kaan said, okay, for all these years, we provide design services, and when you work with customer, when you work with the clients, they bring a brief, and you are just using that brief as basis, and there can be some stuff you can't change when you don't own the product. But when it's your own product, you are building the whole stuff from scratch. And Tinyman, as I said, it was called AlgoSwap those days, and Kaan said you can just experiment everything. You are free, and this will be our own product, and let's create something that we will also love to use. And it was really motivating to me because you have a really empty whiteboard, and I could do everything. And I created different concepts for the product. And our main mechanism is swap. And I create a concept that's there are two platforms in the space, and on one of these platforms we have a really small, tiny person, and he's looking to the other platform. Actually, he wants to go to that platform, but there's no connection. And Algorand had no disconnection in those days, and we really like this concept because it's basically abstract explanation of the pool system. You have some assets, but in the ecosystem, in the blockchain, there are different projects and different assets. You want to own them, but there is not a way to trade them autonomously. Your own option is to ask people who own those assets. So those story were really solid, was really solid, and as a team we really liked the approach. But then we decided to get rid of AlgoSwap name because the concept was really strong, and AlgoSwap is actually not reflecting the whole story. So we said, okay, we can continue with Tinyman, and actually Tinyman also came up from the term of big guy, because in the other chains, okay, you can swap and you can add liquidity to pools and you can stake them, you can do everything, but you need to pay really high fees, and not everyone have that amount of money.
A tiny man with a huge wallet. Basically.
Yeah. But in Algorand, there's this advantage. Transaction times are really short and the fees are really cheap. So actually, instead of creating a product for the big guys, we want to create something for tiny, small people. And that's why we come up with Tinyman name.
I see. Very, very interesting. I didn't heard about like the fact that it was initially called AlgoSwap. I feel like there was even a poll recently where people were saying we should make it illegal to add algo in the name of a project. Everyone is like starting with this as a prefix these days. But talking a bit more in depth about building the brand itself. So I guess we already covered sort of the motivation behind the name, but what were the sort of key elements of the branding strategy for it? Like once you establish this initial aesthetic in terms of how to present the platform itself, the logo, things like that. Is this something that served as the precursor for then further developing other elements of the branding strategy, or you already had something in mind?
Yeah, actually, after deciding the name and the main story, the main element of our branding, the Tinyman, everything came up very easily because we want to create something for Tinyman, and we are also Tinyman. So we want to show people, we want to show our potential community, we are your friends and you are not alone. We are Tinyman and we are with you. And most of us living in Turkey, and we know how you feel. And, you can trust us. We try to give that feeling to the user. And also, one of the most elements a blockchain project should have is actually transparency, because if you have a community and if you say we are Tinyman and you are Tinyman, we are your friends, we are in this together, if you say this, you should also be transparent. And from the day one to this day, we try to share every update and every think with to share these with our community. And also the other thing is we have a community, and Tinyman is something is a project that's community driven. We create the story, okay, we continue this story, and we are planning the next step of Tinyman, the Tinyman product, and also Tinyman itself. But also community is also contributing and committing to this story. It's not produced by ourselves only. It's something collective.
Oh, sure. And for the listeners out there, the protocol itself is for V2 is done in Tealish. It's fully open source. You can check it out on GitHub. Some other elements, there's a lot of repositories open sourced, such as the TinymanPy SDK. You could pretty much build your own UI for your own AMM that could rely on Tinyman smart contracts that are already deployed. I think the license itself is business license, so like there's a locked period of years, after which I think it becomes GPL v3 or something like that, and so people can start using it for like commercial purposes, but you cannot sort of copy the protocol itself for commercial purposes as of now, but it will be possible in the future.
Also our brand is also open source, and in the early days of Tinyman, lots of people love the branding and love the thing we have created, and they try to contribute, and they created NFT projects, NFT collections, and also sub products for Tinyman. So yeah.
The Figma boards are available for free. I believe the design assets, all of that.
Yeah, all the core elements we use for the branding, for the marketing, the 3D character, and also stickers, and also emojis, wallpapers, patterns, colors. Everything is available on GitHub. Awesome. And also in Figma.
And maybe to add a bit more technical details here. And I'm sorry, I try to avoid them, but I'm just really curious. Speaking about challenges, and I guess the most important lessons learned in creative the immersive brand for a protocol like that, because it's a very, very overcrowded space, right? Won't you agree? Like, I know we have still, you can count pretty much on fingers the amount of decentralized exchanges on Algorand. It's certainly bigger than talking about things like oracles, bridges, or whatever. But we still do have a rather small amount of decentralized exchanges. But I'm talking about the overall space. Like, right, we have tons of stuff on Ethereum. There's just so many decentralized exchanges out there, and everyone is almost like a rule consistently has something that needs to be an eye candy, needs to catch your eye, and it needs to grab your attention, because the higher the competition, I suppose, the higher is the creativity that needs to be involved to be unique in this space. And I don't know, like for me, Tinyman certainly managed to grab that particular aesthetic that is just. I would still say it's sort of an eye candy, but it's very minimalistic. And once if you truly do understand sort of the intent of Algorand blockchain and things like that, it really just becomes appealing. It's like finding Easter eggs and some, like, I don't know, Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul episode, But yeah, so what sort of tools are your primary tool set, right? Because once again, a multidisciplinary designer is someone who is not just working with, I suppose, vector graphics and things like that, right? This also involves animation, maybe some sort of coding as well. So what would you say were the main tools that you sort of relied on in order to create this, and as a consequence, main challenges and lessons learned?
Actually, thanks for the kind comments on the brand. Our aim was creating something, a system for people, even they don't see the Tinyman name or the Tinyman logo. When you browse the Twitter feed, when you scroll in Twitter feed, you can easily connect and say, yeah, this is Tinyman's material and this is from Tinyman. You can easily say that. I'm glad we succeeded this. And if we come to tools, actually, I'm using lots of different tools in my creative process. Figma is our main tool in the Hippo, and we are using this for our product design and also creating design systems and also brand systems. Figma is really our main tool. But for marketing materials and also teasers, animations, I use the Creative Cloud products, Photoshop, After Effects, also Premiere, and also sometimes the 3D set of Creative Cloud products, Substance Painter, something like that. And also Blender is also really one of the core tools. I also learned how to use Blender with Tinyman because market is changing really fast and everything is changing really fast. Sometimes you say something and the next day it's not valid anymore. So if we want to create a brand system, it should be easy to produce. So, okay, we are doing marketing teasers, we are creating whole new worlds, but these should be easier to create. So when we first start Tinyman, I was just doing frame by frame animation by just drawing all the frames. And I said, okay, this is not suitable for a blockchain product because it's really difficult and takes long times. So I thought if we create a 3D character, then we could use open source animations on this, and we could use open source materials, 3D materials, and expand the system more. Because I don't know, thinking in 2D compositions is okay. It's still doable, but when you have the scene in front of you, the 3D cubes, models, character, and they're also moving, it's a lot better and easier to create.
I mean, it kind of gives you an entire dimension, extra dimension to be creative. So it's certainly, but then still, you that's like. There's some fusion going on there. It's not just 3D, right? Majority of the elements, everything is sort of operating in 2D for I suppose platform elements, things like that. But the branding itself, the marketing, things like that, that's where there's this interesting blend of 3D elements going on. So talking about strong branding in blockchain ecosystems, one other interesting aspect is I believe you guys also have your own font, right? For Tinyman. So could you also tell us and to our listeners a little bit about what was sort of the design process behind it and why you had to create your own font? Because it's usually something that is done when you really need to. But I guess this was part of the goal, right? You guys wanted to create your own design system, not just the brand. So it's only makes sense to have something custom in this case.
Yeah, while designing the design system, creating the design system, typography is one of the things you are deciding and defining early. And we were using JetBrains font, JetBrains monofont back then, and some letters wasn't reflecting the feeling we want to give. Some letters were really too sharp, and we thought, okay, sometimes you can just say, okay, no problem, we can continue with this, and this is the font we look for. But we are able to do lots of things with these meshings right now, and I thought, okay, these are sharp, but we can make them more friendly, make them more suitable for a Tinyman brand. And those days, I also took a course, typography course in the college, and also Tinyman was a great experiment area. Tinyman's font was a great experiment area for me in those days, and we created a basic version for the AMM version 1, and for 1 year we used that font, and with the AMM 2 we modified and improved more, and now we are using the Tiny version 2 with the AMM version 2. But it was a bit crazy because in the design team we didn't have the knowledge of creating or modifying fonts, but it's changed some stuff now. We also use this approach in our other projects, in Para, for example.
I see. And you mentioned a few things about emotions, and when it comes to emotions, like I think depending on the audience that you're trying to serve the product to, it can be vastly different. I still think that, for example, trying to satisfy a group of engineers with an internal tooling is often a mission impossible, because engineers have a lot of opinions, a lot of biases. Some are, adepts of a certain stack, some are generalists, and but when it comes to basically serving any layman user out there who goes on the website, like how do you measure? Like, is there a metric of sorts that you guys measure when it comes to how well does the audience or a subset of your audience perceive the branding that is being developed? Was there some sort of set of stages where you were evaluating the things you were creating? Because is there some sort of feedback loop that comes in regards to design, and does it come from the audience?
Yeah, actually, in Web 2, in the traditional products, you don't have a chance to get feedback a lot from your customer, because they're just coming to your product and they're solving their problems and they go and they pay for that. But with Web3, we see an increase in the community-driven projects, and Tinyman is also one of those projects. And from the day one, we received lots of feedback for the Tinyman branding and lots of different ideas for Tinyman branding. And also team is also brainstorming. For example, the car idea, when we first launched Tinyman, we launched with a Tinyman's car, and this idea was not mine. It was discussed in the team, and we said, okay, it's really cool, we can continue with that. And these kind of comments are also coming from the community, and we also find them very valuable, because these people are using our products and they want to contribute to our branding, our story. And of course, we listen to them and we talk these kind of feedbacks internally and manage the branding according to those.
And how would you say, if there are some, supplementary metrics, how would you say the role of the branding that was created helped with driving, user adoption and community engagement as the things were rolling out? Could you see how this ability to quicker recognize a particular design style was helping Tinyman? Because Tinyman is not the only product in relation to Algorand that you guys also have, right? There's also things like Tealish, for example, that also has a very cool documentation website with very, I would say, Tinyman-esque aesthetics. And would you say there was a significant boost in this regard, helping with user adoption and things like that?
Yeah, actually, for the products, we are a decentralized trading platform. So actually, when we come to metrics and when we come to farms, pools, branding have don't have that much effect because people are moving their money to platforms where they give high rewards. Sometimes this becomes Tinyman, sometimes this becomes other protocols. But branding is really important for building a community and creating a bond, emotional bond with these community members. And with the current stage of internet, having a brand that is memeable is really important because, as I said, community wants to contribute to your story, and even people who don't have really design skills, they should also be able to contribute to the brand and contribute to the product. And with this way, with Tinyman, with this name, with its story, people were able to create memes and different materials easily. And also they create their own NFT collections. They also created different sub-communities under Tinyman, and this created a strong community, I can say.
And moving on to the tips for blockchain protocols and projects, I'm sure there will be folks who are interested in a bit more in-depth overview of design. After this episode, what would you say are the key factors to consider when a team, an individual, a company is trying to develop a brand for a blockchain project? And we can generalize it to any sort of platform. Doesn't necessarily need to be an AMM.
To start, actually, every product have its own soul, and every product needs something different. In our case, Tinyman was the first platform in SDEX in Algorand, and Algorand has had really competitive advantage across different chains, and this advantage also affected Tinyman, and we decided to continue with this approach. But as I said, every project, every protocol needs something specific to itself, and it also be decided with planning and researching before creating and building the whole brand. Because you will continue this, we will create this brand, but this brand will be with you until you redesign. It's like forever, and it's like an identity for you, and you need to specify your needs and specify your vision carefully, and you need to build your brand on these phases. Okay.
So I guess to sort of reiterate, finding something simple, some simple idea, simple core sort of value, or it could, I suppose, even be a character of sorts that represents certain values, and then building everything around this sort of core value, core idea. And I guess looking at, for example, Tinyman, another addition that you can add is also creating a design system, because who knows where are you going to evolve in terms of functionality in the future. There could be a completely different platform, and if you have your own design guideline in place already configured, it will just help you iterate a lot faster and build new products that are already recognizable by folks who use the previous platforms under the same design guideline. So, I mean, that even if you look at big guys, right, like Google and Microsoft, IBM, Apple, everyone has their own design system, and it's not just because they want to make everything look the same. For example, look at the logos of Google products. I have no idea how to decipher them because they all look like one rainbow drop, but it also saves them time, saves them money, because you don't need to reinvent the wheels every time. some folks like different approaches where they try to do something completely new for every new project, but you gotta be really efficient in this case if you if you have resources and time to because it's like I guess for some teams it's like having a baby. It's you're creating something that is supposed to last for quite some time. So I mean, of course, each baby needs to last for some time. It's just a metaphor. All right. So talking about social media, maybe, and other digital platforms for effective branding. And before we dive into it, just wanted to clarify as well one additional thing. Do you also do the music for example, if you look at the marketing videos for Tinyman, because some of them have really cool tracks, or you guys hired some cool indie band from Ankara or Istanbul to record the music for you?
Not really, actually. We are using a product for this, and they have a huge archive of sounds and also musics. But I also have some Adobe Audition. I don't know. Was it Audition? Yeah. I also have a small knowledge of Adobe Audition, and sometimes to fit the music with the scene, I remix them on there. But usually for teasers, for videos that we don't have music, we are doing sound design internally. Yeah. But sometimes, for example, for the Decipher video and also launch of MM2, Tinyman was talking to their parents and talking about the journey and the stuff coming right now. So, for example, in this work, we collaborated with a person who is doing voiceovers, but mostly we are handling it internally. For example, in our tutorials, we were using AI-generated voices, and we received lots of feedback. Oh my God, what is this child's voice? And it was really creepy, by the way. Fergal was also scared of those.
If it's not a secret, what was it? Some open source library, or you used cloud provider?
It was an open source library, and you were just giving the script, and there were some available voices, and we were just creating sounds with this approach.
Not to sound like I'm promoting, but just to mention, Azure Speech Studio has pretty good AI-generated sound library for like NLP. Very realistic, and you can also control the the duration of the sound, where you put the accent and things like that.
By the way, with the new AI hype, I think we have now lots of improved and developed voiceover products right now.
Awesome.
We were using this approach 2 years ago, and also AI voiceovers methods were not really great. But right now you can just give a script and also arrange feelings, emotions. Yeah, it's really changed the game.
You even like have a soundbite of your own voice for 5 minutes, and boom,
you can also train.
And you have your own clone speaking with your voice, which is cool and creepy at the same time. I feel like
yeah.
At some point, it was in the past 2 years, it used to be cool and useful, or cool and stupid or over-engineered for a very long time. But every new AI development that comes out these days is like cool and creepy at the same time, and it just keeps going. All right, so I guess maybe to talk a little bit about the social media. If you could just add a few notes there as well, what sorts of social media platforms and I guess strategies that you guys involved helped you the most with building the community around Tinyman.
Yeah, actually, in social media, our strategy, our approach to strategy is a bit traditional, but our execution process is really experimental. For example, we see every product update, every launch as a new campaign, and we are building small campaigns under Tinyman branding for these launch. For example, AMM2 or the migration campaign or farming campaign. These were done specifically for those launch. And right now, actually, we share lots of stuff with the community, but we are also experimenting internally and not share all the stuff with it. But right now, we are in a weird point in the media. We had new media, but right now with the AI and also different mediums, we have something like new media or brand new media, because you really have lots of opportunities, lots of different mediums. You can create interactable systems, and also you can create AR, and you can use VR technologies, or these immersive videos, spatial audios. There are lots of different approaches and methods these days. And I think blockchain is also part of this brand new media moment, in my opinion. And I think supporting the project with these kind of methods is really great for the community. We had lots of ideas, but not said all of them.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of more exciting stuff to come for new iterations of Tinyman. But speaking about the future of Tinyman and sort of the role of branding, is there anything interesting that you can share in regards to upcoming changes, developments, goals for Tinyman? And this could span from technical to design specific details, pretty much, whatever is allowed to be shared by you within the scope of the podcast.
Yeah. Actually, we have been a bit quiet in the social media side for some time, but we're around and we are still building some stuff in Tinyman, and there are several products that are coming, and we are just arranging last stuff, and we will also start their campaigns and share with the community. Currently, blog posts are preparing, the products are designed, developed, and now we are in the stage of branding. Blog posts are being written, and also I start to design campaigns for these launch. So we have governance, as you know. We have been all waiting for this launch, and I think it will be huge. We are working on this right now, but also, as I said, we have a bit extra products and also really exciting updates from the team. But just wait. I can say.
Awesome. And I did some playing around last weekend. Actually, was in search for a quick start template for Tealish and an AlgoJig. So there's now a super simple starter for AlgoKit. You can now use this to quick start a Tealish plus AlgoJig project. We'll be adding some CI, VS Code stuff a bit later, but there were no sections on AwesomeAlgo in regards to AlgoKit templates, and I would really love to see this being developed into this vibrant entry point, right? Because at the end of the day, there will be a lot of folks trying to pick different tools, and it would be nice that if there would be a lot of choice, right? I want this app to be made with Tealish, this app with SteelScript, this thing with, I don't know, Seal. If you've heard of Seal, you can now write smart contracts with C if you want to. But basically, I think the stuff that you guys did with Tealish was really solid. Let's hope to see that there's some community-based or community-driven projects being built on it, and that's only going to help with further improvements of the this transpilation language. And yeah, sorry, I went on the engineering side of things
no
as well.
problem.
But why the can, by the way? Like, is it something that came out from brainstorming for the design? But what was the sort of symbolism behind the can? Is it because of the game, the Popeye game, where he like eats the spinach or whatever?
Yeah, actually, Tealish is actually something Fergal is driving right now. And before launch and before Decipher, he asked me, Ertekin, we need to create a branding for this, and I don't know what to do. And we created some concepts. We created different stuff, but the main point was the liquid, because Tealish is not a new method, but actually something that makes you comfortable while writing codes. Because with the other versions of Teal, by the way, say if I am wrong, I'm just telling what Fergus said. Tealish is something like when you write code with Teal, you need full concentration, and actually Tealish is trying to decrease these kind of problems and give you a comfortable environment. For this, we want to place this brand as something Tinyman consumes, because as you know, Tinyman was written in PyTeal in the first version. Then after that, we used Tealish for the new AMM, and the writing smarting contracts and also building the product with this contracts was really easier, and Tealish was something that makes Tinyman stronger. And this is why we wanted to proceed with Popeye story. Tinyman is consuming this, and he receives its comfortable mind, peaceful mind, and also strong body, something like this.
I see. Yeah. I'm curious what would be a Tinyman who also uses. Let's imagine that there is, some more advanced version of AlgoJig somehow embedded into AlgoKit already. What would that be? It's like consuming liquid and then, I don't know, like drinking some Red Bull in addition, or that's how a Tinyman can become like, an overly buff man or something like that. It's like a lot of add-ons on top, which would be nice eventually. But talking about, I guess, the closing thoughts, there has been a lot of additional insights in regards to how Tinyman was developed. And yeah, once again, I think you're doing an amazing job. I was really surprised that pretty much you're the only person behind Tinyman branding and things like that. And yeah, I think you're doing an amazing job. I'm looking forward to see what are those exciting things that you mentioned that are coming in future. But for aspiring designers in space, and it doesn't necessarily need to be blockchain space, any interesting advice that you would give, for example, in regards to what would you say as essential fundamental skills and experiences that you have to obtain to consider yourself as a designer in this space, and things like that?
Yeah, actually, it's like when you want to create something, first you need to see how other people is creating. You need to consume what they are doing and what's their approach, and after that you can have a clear mind and you can decide on what you want to create, or what tools you will use. You can just start. I am going to learn Blender, and after learning Blender, you can, if you don't have anything in your mind, then you won't be able to learn Blender. So in my opinion, before choosing tools or before choosing approach, I think people or designers should decide on what they want to create, and if they have anything really something huge, it's no problem. You can learn. We can learn because we have a huge library, huge archive in the internet, and there are lots of designers who is trying to show people how are they doing their process, and they give some insights about their approach and methods. So I think before learning something, deciding what to do and creating the whole environment, whole toolkit according to this is really useful. This was my case in Tinyman.
So I guess, in other words, before painting a picture, you need to have this picture embedded into your own imaginary sort of creative brain so that you know how to translate it. All right. And I guess with that, Ertekin, we had a really interesting discussion. Really enjoyed it. Once again, amazing job with Tinyman branding, and best of luck with new upcoming changes and future improvements to the platform. And I'm looking forward to see how what other branding visual guidelines are you going to build in future. And I think you still early in your career, and you're going to do a lot of amazing stuff. So thank you for coming to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Thank you for us.